Next one up, we have the Human Intelligence Enhancement, Gene Editing, and BCI group. Take it away.
Right. So we just we talked about like intelligence enhancement in general, enhancement of humans. The two approaches we talked about were genetics and BCI, and then genetics kind of breaks down into two different things, like germline, so editing. Sorry. Oh, okay. Like editing embryos and editing in adults, and then BCI. It's like, I mean, basically, broadly there's like two things I can see that you could maybe do that would increase intelligence substantially. So it's like augmenting the connectome with like more long-range connections, like a lot more, because like like half of our brains are white matter basically. So clearly this is an important resource. So like maybe you could expand that. And then the other thing is like actually like basically expanding the cortex. Call this like an exocortex. So like either with like some sort of like simulated cortical tissue, or with actual like grown cortical tissue, and then it's like your brain is connected up to it with like a really high bandwidth interface. So that's like really the difficult thing I think with BCI is that you need like to actually like make people qualitatively smarter. You need like a really high bandwidth connection. It's like the corpus callosum is like 200 million axons. So I suspect you probably need something on that order. So it's like it's not just like a tool that you're hooked up to that you're using. It's actually like something that's integrated into your brain tightly that you can use to think better. So what would success look like? I mean, yeah, well, I mean, I think everyone cares. I don't know. It's like success is, like you can increase like general problem solving ability by like a lot, like say several standard deviations. So how long would this take? I mean, I think germline, this could be done probably in less than 5 years, and for probably like less than $100 million. That's I think that's the cheapest and like fastest approach. Although there's a big caveat, because it's like it takes a long time to have an impact because the kids need to grow up, right? So but in terms of like just technically doing it, I think it's the quickest and cheapest approach. In vivo is probably more difficult. It's not clear how well it'll work. Probably take more, north of 100 billion. 100 million, I said, not 100 billion. But yeah, I think that, it's still feasible, potentially. And BCI is, I don't know as much about this. It's a lot harder for me to say, but yeah, I've wrote down probably take more than 1 billion. Like I think Neuralink has spent like, well, they've received like 600 million some odd in funding, is what I looked up yesterday. BCI seems like having like 100 million connections seems like read-write connections seems pretty far away. So I'm not as optimistic about that. So I mean, I'm just gonna go on to the bottlenecks. So like for germline, it's like the one big technical problem that we still need to solve is epigenomic correction. So this is basically like the same thing like you need for like doing safe cloning. So basically, you have a cell in a cell culture, and you want to turn it into an embryo that can grow up and not have like birth defects. That's the big thing there. For like doing in vivo gene therapy, it's really like efficient delivery of like large molecules, nucleic acids to brain cells. And then for BCI, it's like the Butch's number, read-write bandwidth. I'm not sure whether or not you need single neuron resolution, but that's potentially also a difficulty there. And then non-technical bottlenecks, it's like, well, there's a lot of taboo around IQ, gene editing, and like just doing stuff with embryos in general. People are worried about like unequal access to enhancement tech in general. And then I guess for BCI, like mental privacy, if people are interested in like brain-to-brain networking stuff. And then like what are the risks and benefits of this? I mean, so like my view is that like humans maybe aren't actually smart enough to solve alignment as it stands. So we basically need some sort of cognitive enhancement tech. Like it's just necessary to get a good outcome is my view. Then an obvious risk is like, well, smarter humans could also maybe just like build unsafe AGI faster.
The orthogonality thesis applied to humans.
Well, I mean, it doesn't really. I mean, it's like humans are within like a like a small particular subspace of minds. So like it only applies like somewhat.
So we had an interesting discussion around this very last point here. Like, will smarter humans just build unaligned AGI faster? And the one sort of point we came to was humans seem like they're already on track to build unsafe AGI, whereas it's not entirely clear that we're on track to build, to be able to align AGIs. So ideally, if we could accelerate, if we make humans more capable, we might actually make differential progress on the alignment issue.
Yeah, and like this could also help accelerate like high speed like whole brain emulation, like if you had smarter humans to work on it.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. You're exactly on time. Love it. Okay, questions, comments. Well, where's the other mic? If anyone spots the other mic. Oh, great. Well, then we'll take this for now if you can project. Oh, sorry. Did anyone not have a question earlier that we didn't get to? Okay, you and then Katalin.
Why do you think that you have like 30 plus years?
I don't think we have 30 plus years necessarily, but it's like I don't think it's completely overdetermined that we don't. It's like I'd put some probability mass that we have that long. It's like I don't think it's negligible. I think like if there's a 10% chance we had that long, it totally makes sense to invest in the germline stuff. And I wasn't only talking about the germline stuff here, right? There's also the in vivo and the BCI, which could potentially pan out a lot earlier. I put about like 5 years, but it's if things go well.
Yeah, thank you. So nice to see this other perspective. So Christoph Koch is very famous for saying there's like no geniuses in neuroscience. Can you just react to that? So I think the idea is that this is like has to be a bunch of people have to get together. So maybe, I don't know, if we had a room of Einsteins, it still probably wouldn't be enough. Maybe, what does that make you think of? Like maybe it's just not enough to have individuals that have super high IQ for neuroscience purposes. How do you see that playing out? Yeah.
I don't quite understand the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I just like basically making a few or a bunch of people that have very high IQ. It doesn't seem to maybe solve neuroscience the way Einstein solved or advanced classical physics 100 plus years ago, right? It's in terms of like how the field gets moved. It just moves in a whole bunch of random directions, and it's just
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're necessarily trying to solve neuroscience, right? We're trying to get a good outcome from AI, such as, I mean, there's like it's like trying to solve alignment, trying to get high-speed WBE working, and then you can have people that can think like 10,000 times faster, and you basically bought as much time as you need, and then you can do stronger forms of intelligence enhancement once you have like full control over your own computation graph. So it's I think this is like I don't have like a super detailed view of like how the smarter people end up getting a good outcome. Like it's, I mean, kind of by definition, right? Like if I was smart enough to have the detailed view, then exactly. Like part of this is just like like the obvious first step is like just make smarter people, and then let them solve it.
That might be just my lack of knowledge, but how do you actually make people smarter with BCI? Like, what's the exact process that you're gonna follow? Like,
I don't know. Yeah, it's like I'm BCI is the option here I'm like the least hopeful about, but it seems plausible that like if you had a very large number of connections, so like sort of like on the order of like the corpus callosum, then you could either like augment the number of long-range connections between different brain areas. Like we know that's an important thing because like half the brain or more than half the brain volume is like spent on white matter. So that's like you could have like a lot of high-speed connections between like different brain areas, and hopefully maybe learn to use those. And then like the exocortex thing where it's like you have this reservoir of additional like compute, and, running some sort of algorithm that you think you could actually like learn to use and like integrate into your brain. It's like I don't know how plausible it is that would actually work, but.
okay, so say more widespread connectivity, for example, and maybe like faster firing, more memory capacity, maybe.
So there's like two benefits to like the sort of like synthetic axons. One is you can pack them more tightly. Basically, like a copper wire takes up less space than like an actual axon. And then the second one is the transmission speed is a lot higher. So like these are the two main benefits. And like we think this is probably important for intelligence, but like other people in our group are more specialized in this. And also making these connections, it's going to be quite hard, which is part of the reason why the timelines and the expense for BCI was higher. But that was one of two ideas that we talked about. The other one was the exocortex idea.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even need to use copper wires. You could use like radio potentially. Like the point is that you can just like pack in a lot more connections, which might be useful, right?
Yeah, I guess one final quick question. I guess my question is that will make you think faster, but that doesn't necessarily make you smarter.
Well, it might make you smart. Like if you're constrained by what connections you have between different brain areas, then it might make you smarter, right? Because it's like I think there is some evidence that like people with like different like levels of cognitive ability in various domains, like spatial reasoning and stuff like that, have like different like profiles of connectivity between different brain regions. And so like like smarter people have like higher degrees of connectivity between certain brain regions. So it's like it's plausible that if you could like substantially increase connectivity between different brain regions, you could like maybe in a way that mimics like existing smarter people, or maybe in a way where it's like you're finding like new ways to like hook up brain regions that no human has had naturally. Like maybe you can use that in a way that actually makes you smarter, right? It's not really, I don't see it as being about thinking faster. And then the same thing with the exocortex, right? It's like you're expanding your mind onto like a larger amount of hardware is sort of the idea there. It's not about thinking faster.
Do we have time for one more?
I'm not sure which one to tackle here. I guess probably the most important thing that's bewildering me in this conversation is you're equivalating intelligence with the capacity to align AI. So you're talking about intelligence as if it is equal to empathy or the characteristics that might actually be required. So I think there needs to be a much more refined thinking here around like what actually is required. It's not just brute intelligence, however it is. I mean, what we're talking about, IQ, EQ, like how are we conceptualizing intelligence in the first place? Secondly, I think we have genetic techniques already that can do incredibly remarkable things. I work for a company, I'm the CTO of a biotech company, where we can already improve memory by 104% in normal mice. So I think that's already here. That tech is here, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything in terms of how that's going to play into, I don't know, aligning AI, but I'll leave it there.
Can you repeat that part? The 4% in mice, I didn't hear that.
104% in normal
increase
mice.
what?
Memory performance.
Okay, and can we do that in humans yet?
We're working on it.
Okay.
He's excited.
Yeah, we've done it in 3 animal species. And
I mean,
replicated
like,
it 7 times.
You might ask like, why hasn't like Mr. Rogers solved alignment or something like that? There's clearly a lot of super empathetic.
That's not what I'm saying.
Well, no, I'm not like you. That's obviously a exaggerated example, but like it's true that there's other qualities we want in like people working on alignment, but it seems like the technical challenges in particular are like really difficult. And I guess that's kind of where we see like intelligence playing a major role.
Well, but how does that? I mean, we can't even solve the ethical challenges that we have on the planet as it is right now, with like allegedly the most brilliant people in the world working on it. So,
The ethical challenges? Sorry, didn't.
Well, yes, like we are not necessarily an ethical species. I would make a pretty strong claim
of course.
behind that.
I don't know. I mean, I would love to solve factory farming and a lot of other things like that. I don't really see this as like a solution to absolutely everything. Although once you have the tech to basically modify intelligence, all brain-based traits are basically like have some genetic component. So this could actually provide somewhat of a solution to that as well. Although that gets into more complicated considerations.
Great stuff, you guys. Thank you.
I think there's a few more.